Many Pokemon TCG players these days choose to enjoy the game through its rich history of retro formats. Retro formats are snapshots of what cards were all used at points throughout the game's history. It's fun to revisit these formats as there are tons of unique strategies and good games to be had. Some retro formats like 2010 Worlds continue to be played and enjoyed by many, while others tend to fizzle out and become obsolete. Today we're covering one such format, which is 2013 Worlds. 2013 Worlds is the first World Championship format to be fully into the modern era of the game, with no Heart and Soul Silver series of cards left in the format. This format featured almost the entirety of the Black and White series of sets, with Plasma Freeze being the newest expansion of the time. Many of the most iconic decks of the Black and White era are good in this format, with all-star archetypes like Deluge Blastoise, Ray Eels, Team Plasma TDK, and Darkrai EX at the top of their game. It is missing the final two Black and White expansions, but only a couple of decks are left out from those, such as Verizon and Genesect, so there isn't much missing. If you want a meta that encompasses the feeling and spirit of Black and White, I don't think there's a better choice for a format to play, other than maybe the Japanese-only Black and White block format. Why is it then, with this praise, that the 2013 Worlds format isn't very popular nowadays? Well, a lot of it has to do with the spirit of Black and White that I mentioned. Black and White is a very flawed era of the game, and this format embodies those flaws perfectly. First off, there are no restrictions placed on the player going first, so going first is an objective advantage since you can use supporter cards and oftentimes even attack before the opponent. Secondly, a huge factor of the Black and White era are its big basic Pokémon, which tower far higher in HP and stats than the Stage 2 Pokémon of the time. Stage 2s are still good, but they are more often in lock decks such as a Selborg Gothitelle, or in supporting roles such as Klinklang and Blastoise. The big basic Pokemon carry much of the weight of attacking, and can do so as early as turn 1, which can lead to some incredibly lopsided games. Decks that aren't using big basic attackers usually include lock strategies, which are also not always fun to play against. There is the low tier Fluffy Chomp deck, which I enjoy quite a lot, but it's not super strong. Speaking of lopsided games, nothing embodies that more than Pokemon Catcher, which at this time did not require a coin flip to work. This means that not only could your opponent attack on the first turn of the game, but they could also use Pokemon Catcher to attack whatever they wanted on the first turn of the game, oftentimes also setting up spread damage for a double KO on the following turn. Decks in 2013 are also very inconsistent. During the 2013 season, decks had pretty poor options of supporter cards, often using Sharon or Bianca as their third option, and while 2013 solves this problem with the introduction of Skyla and Colress as tertiary supporter choices, there is still a lot of inconsistency in games. There's almost no onboard draw Pokemon, with Electrode and Musharna being the only ones played. These underpowered draw effects don't really help decks find their pieces, so it pretty much comes down to a supporter card each turn to pray that cards are found. To fill in the gap of consistency, Bicycle and Random Receiver fill out the slots of decks. Another flaw of this format is in its deck diversity. While not nearly as centralized as 2012, 2013 is not super wide in terms of the decks you can play. Many different decks also end up using similar tactics, which can make decks feel samey. Speaking of similar tactics, one of the most common strategies in 2013 is also the most controversial, which is Hypnotoxic Laser and Burbank City Gym. This toxic combo was used by lots of decks because it inflicts lots of poison damage and has a chance to put the opponent to sleep. Without Verizon EX in format, there aren't any good checks for Hypnotoxic Laser. Plus 30 damage from poison is quite the deadly combo, and it can stack up incredibly quickly. It also allows attackers like Darkrai EX to take one-hit KOs on single prize attackers while setting up even more damage on the bench. While the poison is the focus, the sleep condition ends many games by itself. Sometimes you lose a game because your attacker got put to sleep and never woke up, while poison slowly takes its health away. The poison and sleep combo is part of what makes a card like Sableye from Dark Explorers so strong, since it can take advantage of any sleep turns by recovering resources to put their player back on top of the game. The last notable flaw of this format is its cost. While many of the EX cards are not too bad in cost, common staples like Colress and Floatstone have had their prices skyrocket because of the popularity of the Gym Leader Challenge format. Blinking decks with full arts is also pretty implausible these days, so forget about that. Worst of all, the infamous Tropical Beach is the biggest gatekeeper. I recommend proxying Tropical Beach, as even the World Championship Fate versions have had their prices hit hard by the Gym Leader Challenge format. With big basics and just a little bit of luck, you can win any game of 2013, just like the designers intended with their redesign of the game. 2013's Black and White only format is super easy to play and fun for a few casual games, but I don't recommend taking this format seriously in a competitive sense. You'll probably be disappointed in how many games you win despite misplaying, and how many games you lose off an unlucky hypnotoxic laser play. These factors, combined with the lower variety of viable decks and little innovation to be made to lists, is why I think 2013 Worlds has become a dead format. Most people choose to play 2014 since it fixes Most people choose to play 2014 since it fixes some of the issues, such as the first turn issues, the no flip catcher issue, and it provides a hypnotoxic laser counter in Verizon EX. While 2014 isn't perfect either, I do think it's a much more diverse and fun format. Despite that, I still think 2013 is fun to play, and I definitely recommend proxying the format if you were interested in trying it out. There's a few iconic decks like Kling Clang and Rails that don't exist in 2014 that are definitely worth trying out, and the chaotic nature of the format makes for fast-paced and silly games that are still enjoyable in a casual setting. If you enjoyed this history video on the 2013 Worlds format, do be sure to check out my other retro content, especially focused on the set Boundaries Crossed, which I covered last week in my Greatest Sets of All Time Boundaries Crossed video. I also cover other parts of the history of the game, such as recording tabletop games of past formats and covering sets one by one, as I talk about what makes those sets so great. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.